Good morning. It is June 21st, 9 a.m. We're here for our weekly commissioner meeting. We have a full slate of commissioners. Got the administrator and the clerk of the board. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from May 31st and June 7th. Is there any additions, corrections?
No corrections as far as I know.
Okay, and we'll move down to office business, approval of vouchers.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in the total amount of $839,997.19 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Just the one
Just
today?
the one voucher, yes.
Okay, so then we'll move down to the approval of the consent agenda. There are 6 items on the consent agenda today.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Second, and I don't see anybody from Human Services, so I'll pass on the discussion for today.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the 6 items on this consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Been working on a couple of different things. We're going to hear a little bit later today some discussion about the Hapo energy audit and some ARPA projects. Met with a citizen regarding some concerns over the latest iteration of proposals from the governor and U.S. Senator's office regarding removal of the Snake River dams. Been continuing work on the Wilson House lease addendum and potential sale, as well as more broadly some real estate issues with some of the land that the county owns around the Hapo Center, some potentially joint projects with the city of Pasco in downtown Pasco, and property on the courthouse complex. So those are the major things I've been covering this past week.
Thank you. Commissioner Peck.
I suspect a lot of my appointments this past week are going to overlap the other commissioners. I think we were in some of these same ones. Met with a representative from the Colville tribes, Mr. Gunn. I think my fellow commissioners did as well. Had the 1152 committee with the health district on revamping the Benton Franklin Board of Health to comply with the new laws. Courthouse briefing with our WASAC representatives. Then lengthy Benton Franklin Council of Governments meeting on Friday, which focused, among other things, but primarily on a discussion of whether or not to consolidate federally funded small business loan programs that the Council of Governments currently operates together with the Hanford Area Economic Financial Investment Trust to consolidate those, make the application process leaner, more streamlined. We think it benefits the potential borrowers, and it certainly reduces the cost for members of the Council of Governments, including Franklin County. That's a pending question, but that was a lengthy discussion. Those are the highlights. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen.
So had the Health Department meeting last week, also the Franklin County courthouse briefing with WASAC. Had the Metro Executive Board meeting yesterday and spoke with some constituents about building permits and planning. I just want to note out if anybody has any building plans in the near future that try to get with your engineering plans done as early as possible, as there seems to be that's kind of the major holdup as far as getting your plans approved. But if you ever have any questions, I would just call Derek Ratton in the planning and building, and their staff would be more than happy to help you with the permitting process. Thank you.
Well, last week, like Commissioner Peck said, we had, I had the budget review meeting, then we had WASAC, Ben Franklin Health Board, and then I met with Tom French over at the Hapo Center, and we went over the properties over there and walked around and looked at the potential, what we might be able to do there with some of the grounds that are right next to the parking lot. And then I had a call from a very giving person, Nancy Cox, here in our own Franklin County, and she's trying to help an individual that has an adult child. I say an adult child because she has to care for her, and she's handicapped, and they don't have a handicapped bathroom, and I've already talked to the administrator about this. And then she's got a veteran living in, and I guess the board already went over and met with him and are going to help him get into a house. So the veterans is, it's taking care of the people that need to be taken care of. I'm glad to see that they already went over and visited with him, so might have a good outcome there. And that's it. That was my week review. So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment? Anybody on the phone, Keith?
I don't believe we have anybody on the phone yet.
George Dockstetter, South Landing Road, outside of Pasco. I'm really disappointed in all three of you. Meeting individually with the Colville tribe. This was talked about before and discussed in public meeting that it looks improper for you to be meeting with a constituent or potential constituent on an individual basis, because we don't know if they're bribing you or what. If they've got a meeting with county commissioners, then make it public instead of individual meetings by yourselves, because it does not look good. Thank you.
I'll just comment on that each of us, when we did meet with the Colville tribe, was attended by Keith Johnson, the county administrator, as well.
Well, that doesn't matter. It still looks improper as hell.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone, Keith?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the Chief Deputy Clerk position reclassification, Resolution 2022-134. Eric?
Good morning, Commissioners. So I bring today two requests, one on behalf of the clerk and another on behalf of the coroner, to reclassify their respective chief deputy positions. This is kind of a continuation of conversations we've had previously regarding those chief deputy positions and where they should compare to their chief deputy peers. On the ASR, I reflected kind of what other internal comparator positions there are as far as chief deputy positions or senior manager positions for your review. I don't have much to add beyond what I've already shared before, but happy to answer any questions you may have. And it looks like the clerk and coroner are present too, if you have any questions for them.
Questions, Commissioners?
Well, I guess I'm in agreement with it. They all should be paid the same. I just not sure if this is exactly the right time of year, or not time of year, but just with the present economy, that we should be taking this type of a jump forward. But that's my comment.
So as I've said before, I think these should have been done as part of a broader position review, should have been done at budget time. But I also made the point that once you open the gate and do for one, we have a duty to do for all, right? We have a requirement for equity. We don't favor one over here over another. And to me, the obligation for equitable treatment for our employees outweighs the other concerns, even though the other concerns I think are significant. Second point, I think I read in here that these were grade changes to carry the current step because these were position grade changes, not promotions. Did I interpret that correctly?
That's correct. County policy requires that
Okay.
when there's no change in job duties.
I just want to be
Yep.
sure that I interpreted that language in the package correctly. I recognize, this is point 3, that the economy is, in my opinion, out of control. Inflation is ridiculous, but I've also said multiple times from this microphone that I think a day is coming sooner rather than later where interest rates in the economy turn the other way, and we'll find ourselves similar to where we were in the 2009-10 window. When Wasack was here giving a courthouse briefing last week, one of the things they commented on and frankly complimented on was the counties that got ahead of recession last time and were not spending, but were putting money into reserves and being cautious, and that served us very well through the 2010 cycle, and we actually came out of it better than many other better situated counties. So the steps that we've been taking, the path we're going down in pursuing equity, I fear could come back and bite us next year when recession hits. Last time it was a 9% reduction in staff and a 10% cut in the budget. I have no desire to cut staff. I certainly hope we don't ever get to that, but this path looks eerily similar. Bottom line, I can't get over the fact that we must treat all of our similarly situated employees equitably, and for that reason, I'll be supporting these. Thanks.
So with that, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2022-134 and approve Resolution 2022-135 as presented.
Commissioner, if I may, could we do these separately for the record, please?
Sure. Make the motion to approve Resolution 2022-134.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second to pass Resolution 2022-134. All in favor, say aye.
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 Move for approval of Resolution 2022-135 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2022-135. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
All righty, so let's move down to the next item on the agenda, which is updating Franklin County Shoreline Master Program. And there is public participation plan, Resolution 2022-136. Derek.
Thank you. This is a request to officially initiate, frankly, staff thought when we entered into the approval with the Department of Ecology regarding the Shoreline Master Program funding, that was our initiation. I've learned, no, we actually have to do a formal initiating the kickoff of the Shoreline Master Program update and review. Along with that is a request, as part of that, we also have to propose a participation plan, public participation plan that also must be approved by the board. So that's what's before you. Happy to answer questions. Just know that the particulars of the plan or the update or the review are just basically waiting to be developed based on this being initiated or kicked off. So long story short is I hate saying that, sorry. Every 8 to 10 years, just like the comp plan, we have to review and update our Shoreline Master Program to ensure that we've adopted any changes, regulatory changes that have occurred over the intervening 8 years, and to make sure that it's in compliance or with our comp plan as well. We don't envision a lot of dramatic changes. Another thing that we check in this process is the uses or the activities along the shorelines may have changed over those times too, and that's part of the review as well. to see if we need to modify our policies. But mostly it's a lot of this is state mandated. We kind of have to set the program based on those requirements, and then we go through the process. But we have got, other than staff time, all our consultant services will be reimbursed through the ecology grant. So, any questions?
Questions, Commissioners?
I have no questions.
What's the timeline on reimbursement?
Personally, I have not been through the process. Generally, it's, we will get a bill from AHBL, then we submit that for reimbursement, but my understanding is usually, I honestly don't know. But I mean, we're talking months, not years or anything like that, if that long.
Okay.
Derek, my recollection is that we affirm or review and acknowledge that the work was completed, and then the bill gets passed on to
Yeah.
the state. It doesn't, it's not something, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my recollection, it's not something we pay and then collect later.
You are correct. You are correct, yeah.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2022-136 as presented.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second to approve. Is there a resolution on this?
It's Resolution 2022-136.
2022-136. All in favor, say aye.
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 All righty, that'll move us down to our next item on the agenda, which is closed record hearing, 2022-02 Kohler subdivision. And Derek, it looks like you're up again.
This one and one more.
And this is a closed record hearing, and at this time, I'll open the closed record hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a Kohler subdivision. It's located on parcel number 126150015, generally located north of Dent Road, west of Richview Drive, south of Fanning Road, and east of the Columbia River. The comp plan designation for the property is rural shoreline development, and the zoning is RC1. They are seeking to create 22 one-acre lots, and the property size of the parcel is approximately 29.45, and that's gross. It's 2644 net. Is this doohickey working today? Oh, okay. So as indicated on the slide, that is the property in yellow. The intersection where Dent switches from a north-south orientation and east-west, from an east-west is right there in the corner. Yeah.
You turn on that pointer, it wasn't turned on the side thinking you said it.
Oh, my God. I apologize. Okay. So, this works a lot easier. Dent Road, Dent Road. This is actually being proposed as the new extension in or a new road called Fraser. Well, it's not a new. It's a new extension of Fraser. Eventually, Dent Road, running north-south, is proposed to be Fraser Road and connecting to Fraser Road.
All the way down to Burns?
Yeah.
Right.
Burns is probably down here somewhere. It's basically that crop circle. So it's down to the south. This is the proposed layout. As mentioned, they'll be putting in this road here. All the lots, though, will only access onto interior lots. They will not access onto Fraser.
Derek, who is building Fraser?
That would be the developer. Staff notified agencies, mailed notices to property owners, posted the property, and published in the paper regarding the proposal on March 3rd. SEPA mitigated determination of non-significance was issued on March 3rd as well. And there are additional mitigations. Most of them are wrote. The big one is that this proposal, when we received comment from the Department of Archaeological and Historic Preservation and the Yakima tribe, they both, basically, they will need to do an archaeological review of the site as opposed to just inadvertent discoveries. At its April 12 meeting, the Planning Commission did vote after holding a public hearing to approve subdivision 2022-02 with 6 suggested findings of fact and 4 suggested conditions of approval. And I have a suggested motion, or happy to answer any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
So, recognizing that this is a closed record hearing.
Yes.
We can only work from what is in the record.
Right.
What's in the slides all appears to be accurate and consistent. But I'm concerned that your mountain of workload and your short staffing has,
Uh-oh.
yeah, exactly, has created some cut and paste behavior.
Okay.
And so there are some materials in the read-aheads that were provided. I think I'll just give you maybe an example or two. I'll tell you the good news in advance, which is I think they're all things that could almost be put down as Scrivener's errors, meaning
Okay, so
they're
it's nothing
unintended.
material.
Had you not articulated in these slides the exact location, then it could be material, because it actually
Oh,
cites a
okay.
different location from a previous plan, I believe.
Okay.
I don't want to make too much of it, but you might look at findings of fact 1 Lima, 1L.
Okay.
And there's other minor things, but again, I think the importance here, the weight goes to helping the developer get their package through and move forward. I don't see that any of these are going to cause us big issues or legal problems. I did want to ask on finding of fact 1BJ, Bravo Juliet, says the developer puts rock outside the estate wall. Is there somewhere in this material that says that the developer actually does the estate wall? And then the second part of that question is, in this package that you provided, there is a requirement for the lot owner to maintain the property between the Fraser Road and their, well, that would be part of their lot, but it would be an easement part. So that, you know, the part I'm talking about, this typically be outside the estate wall, but before the shoulder of the road.
Yes.
So I guess my question is the developer going to do all that with fabric and rock? I think I saw that in the plan, so I'm trying not to go outside the record. But then I also saw a reference to the parties. So am I right that the reference to the parties is not to create it, but to maintain it?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. And we've had lengthy discussions over the years about this, so that's why I'm being careful to make sure I understand it.
The developer will install it initially, and then
And then they'll have to
landowner.
maintain it after the fact. Okay. Was there something in the record that you recall where there was a requirement for the developer to build an estate wall?
No, they can either build an estate wall, or they can put on the plat that no get access will be provided. That's an option that's pretty much offered to almost all of
Okay,
those
all right. Well,
parties.
that's a helpful clarification. Thank you. I think those are the things that are important enough to bring up. The rest of it, we can talk offline.
Okay.
Thanks.
So Derek, could you go back to your map? The map of the area? Yes. So, the way I understand it, in that, both of these, that cross-section of roads, what's the one, that one there, what's that road right there?
This is Dent,
That's Dent?
and then that's Dent. So Dent currently does this 90-degree orientation shift.
Okay,
And from what I've been informed, the plan is to go from Burns all the way and continue and rename this to Fraser.
okay, it's gonna be renamed to Fraser.
Yeah.
So is Fraser already existing right there?
No, there's nothing here. I mean, there's,
Not there, but above it. Is
it's
that,
up north.
that is Fraser, that
somewhere.
blue line?
No, this is just a section line.
Okay,
I don't recall exactly where Fraser starts. I want to say it's just south of Self Landing, but I
That's
could be
correct.
wrong.
okay.
It does a little drop down, then dead ends, and then it also moves north, but it's in rough alignment with this.
So, in this development, who's gonna incur the cost of the road construction? Is it the county?
No, that would be the responsibility of the developer.
It is the
And then
developer.
they would dedicate that to us, and we would
Right,
then maintain it.
Okay,
Yep.
so are they going to put in an all-weather road there, or are they just putting in
Yes.
a, good,
Yep.
good. With the potential of widening, because as we can foresee, the building out there is getting
That's, yeah.
very intense, and we need roadways that will be able to suffice the traffic movement.
That's one of the nice things.
Mr.
is-
Chairman, respectfully, we're outside the record, and we don't want to compromise this for the applicants. Thank you.
Okay. If we're outside the record, we're outside the record, but we did talk about these roadways prior to this in the beginning.
That's basically the way roads are determined and triggered are based on counts and standards associated with stuff that's under the purview of the Public Works Department. So they review the proposal, they provide us comments, and then that's what we require.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no further questions, I will close the closed record hearing and entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2022-137, Kohler subdivision as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to pass 2022-137. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So next, we'll move down to the closed record hearing, Rivercrest Long Plat application. And at this time, I will open the closed record hearing. So Derek?
Thank you, Chair. And this is actually technically a major amendment. Rivercrest subdivision was presented to the board, I want to say in 19, it might have been 20. And the applicant has come back and has basically broken it into, appears to be, it'll probably be in two phases. And then they've also, when it was originally approved, there was a going kind of determining whether or not they'd be able to get a water right and, full water system installed, private water system for the development. Or they would do the 1 acre exempt well process. They've gone with that. The second, they're doing the exempt wells. I guess they weren't able to get, I don't know why they didn't do the other, but they didn't tell us why. But this is why this is before you, as opposed to just moving forward as a phased development, or a phase of the development. So it's two parcels. Parcel numbers 126-190-341 and 126-190-363. It's generally located east of the Columbia River, southeast of Larkspur Road, west of the South Columbia Basin Irrigation District Canal, and south of Sagemore. Rural shoreline developments, the comp plan designation with an RC1 zoning designation. Property, the two parcels combined are approximately 29.8 acres. Applicant is seeking a major amendment to a previous approved subdivision, which was sub 2020-01, as I just mentioned. These are the original application included all of this property. Now it's just, for this, it's just these two parcels there. This is oriented, so this is north, so this is actually running this way. But they'll have two access points coming on to Columbia River Road. Then all of these will access this road. These lots will access this road and then come down. So no, again, no direct access for lots 1 through 11 to Columbia River Road. Notice was mailed to technical agencies, property owners, and posted in the Franklin County Graphic. The site was posted, and a SEPA determination of non-significance was made on March 24th. We received comments from the following agencies. Again, if I recall correctly, yeah, this one requires also, pretty much everything in that shoreline area now is requiring more robust archaeological studies.
Caution the record.
Yeah, yeah.
Start talking about other projects
Yeah,
and
yeah.
parcels, you're going outside the record.
Okay. And other than that, the comments received were pretty standard. Conclusions of law are as follows. And then at its May 3rd, 2022 meeting, Planning Commission unanimously recommended that the board approve sub 2022-03 with 6 suggested findings of fact and 4 suggested conditions of approval. And actually should say in here as well 4 conclusions of law. So I apologize for that. But if there's any questions, and we also have a suggested motion.
Questions, Commissioners?
Derek, I just need a little help to make sure I've got the right picture here. On findings of fact 1C, the water supplies, it says the lots, I presume that's just the ones in this amendment, not the original application.
Correct.
So the lots are proposed to be connected to an singular, an exempt on-site well. Did you intend to say that? Are these exempt individual wells, or is this like a Class B community well?
No, it meant to read as each lot will have its own exempt well.
Okay, is that in the record somewhere else?
I believe it is, yeah.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
I'm gonna, just for the record, I'm gonna count this as a Scrivener's error, meaning an unintended typo, even though it has real meaning. Because a singular well would then be a State Department of Health approved Class B well to serve that many lots.
correct.
But the intent is individual exempt wells for each lot, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
Is there any other questions?
The Esquatzel, it is restricted, isn't it? It's fenced off?
What do you mean?
Isn't
I'm
the-
sorry.
Where's the Esquatzel Canal from those lots?
Right here, and so this comes down, and then this is a wasteway.
Okay, so the
Right
wasteway, I mean, it's fenced off, correct?
Is that somewhere in the record, Derek, that I can refer to?
That,
I just saw it in the public comment.
It's
Oh,
not.
good. All right, thank you. If it's in the public comment, then it's part of the record.
oh, yeah, yeah, and it's also referenced as the location for the direction boundaries, that it's to the south. But what was your question?
I guess my question is that the Esquatzel in that area, the wasteway, is completely fenced off?
It is not. It's not fenced off. Both the Bureau of Reclamation and the Skibbed were notified of this. They've been notified of it both times and have not requested or even brought up anything regarding fencing of that facility. So they, as the operators, do not view it as a risk, I guess. But that's I shouldn't, speak for them necessarily, but they've been notified of this project twice, and neither time have they.
If they have been notified.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
They're signatories on the plat. So,
all right, thank you. No further questions.
No further questions. If there's no further questions, I will close the closed record hearing and entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2022-138 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2022-138, the Rivercrest Long Plat application. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. With that, we'll move down to administration office business. Keith, discussion of the Hapo energy audit.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. We have on a couple of different occasions had our consultant contractor, McKinstry, make presentations to the board of the results of their investment grade audit and kind of the status of where these varied systems out at the Hapo Center are in relationship to their expected useful life. We have been, as I've said before, have started some discussions with the city of Pasco regarding their participation in the Hapo Center and future relationship there. That discussion with the city is going to take some time. I think most of you are probably aware by now, the city manager announced his retirement over the weekend. And, I don't know that that's going to slow things down, but it is going to take some time for us to completely discuss and ferret out all of our issues with the city regarding the relationship to Hapo going forward. But the short story, to make a long story less long, recently we went to initiate the startup of our cooling system at the Hapo Center Expo Hall, and the cooling units didn't start up, so we're having to call contractors in to try to troubleshoot those and get them working. We have been very fortunate in some sense that spring has lasted forever in Franklin County or in Pasco. Despite the challenges that presents to farmers, it has been a blessing to not have to fire up our air conditioners at the Hapo Center as early as we normally would. But the bottom line is we're treading on some very thin ground in order to be able to keep the facility as operational as we should. So I'm proposing that the board entertain a commitment to moving forward with at least the first phase of the McKinstry proposal. As you recall, it was broken down into essentially 3 phases. The first phase costing in the neighborhood of about $6 million. They are currently revising or updating those numbers. When the numbers that they provided to us a month ago are subject to inflation. They're subject to time limits. We've exceeded the first 30-day time limit. So in order to put those numbers under contract, it's my recommendation that we get that done. And so what I'd like to do, certainly answer questions that the board may have, but hopefully as early as next week, bring a resolution before the board to allow us to sign that contract to begin the first phase of those improvements at the Hapo Center, so that we don't run a continuing risk of not being able to have air conditioning and recognizing that work is not going to be done this summer. We're hopeful, have our fingers crossed, that we'll be able to at least operate through this year. But as I said, we're kind of working on borrowed time, and I would like us to approve that so that we can get moving forward on that, at least that piece of the project. And then as we discuss future work with the city of Pasco, we can continue to have those discussions and move that ball forward as well. But that's the request for today. Is there's no official action. I'm just kind of looking for consensus, answering questions that you may have, and with your approval, bring a resolution before the board, as I said, as early as next week to move forward.
Questions, commissioners?
What is the timeline that we have to be compliant with the
Clean Buildings Act?
Clean Buildings
Yeah.
Act? Yes.
That, I believe, starts in 27, Tom?
Yeah, we've got to have it done by 26.
Yeah. Yeah, the measurement will take place in 26, but the threshold is 2027.
And the penalty for not being compliant is,
Do you recall, I want to say it's in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. Yeah, per year.
how much?
$30,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was more, so, all right, thank you.
So Keith, my question is, are we still within the bid that they placed on these components, or are we outside that timeline?
We're outside that timeline. Because of inflation and some of those issues, the price is probably going to go up. The longer we wait, the more it gets. But if we
You
put it
don't-
under contract now,
You don't know how high it's going to go up?
not over time. Yeah, I would say, inflation's running 5 to 8%, so it's probably in that neighborhood.
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is there consensus with them to move forward with?
So I've got a few questions, Keith.
Sure.
Do we know the approximate cost of making the repairs to the existing system? Have we looked at that?
Yeah, we're getting, is it Apollo that's providing those estimates? Should have that this week. We don't have those before us today.
Okay. Mr. French, I see you're here. I'm just going to acknowledge that, but I'll ask Keith the question because you're not on a microphone. At one time, we talked about air conditioning in that building being critical to generating revenue out of the arena. And more subsequently, I heard Mr. French at a meeting talk about how the intended mission and rental uses of that space had changed and that air conditioning was still desired but not as critical as before. Third observation I would make is that, well, next question. This is proposed to be funded with .09 funds?
Actually, no, this would be proposed to be funded with the American Recovery Plan, or Rescue Plan.
ARPA funds, that's
ARPA
right.
funds, yeah.
That's right. You briefed us on that. I forgot. Would it,
Incidentally, I apologize for the interruption, but we do have an $85,000 commitment to pay for the audit fee through .09 funds. So at least that piece of it is covered through.
through
The
.09
construction and upgrades would be through ARPA funds.
ARPA funds, which if we didn't use them for this, we'd either use them for something else or potentially have to return them,
Correct.
potentially. Okay. I'm not sure I want to bring this up again, but I will. If we do this, we are, it would seem, essentially closing the door on prior discussions about the possibility of selling the facility.
I would.
And please, I am interested in your answer, but I wanted to just finish with, as part of that question, are you aware of any financial obligations using ARPA funds for this, for us to retain the facility?
Let me start with the first part of the statement there. If the board were to entertain some option other than retaining the facility, we would have to be selling it with those conditions. And so somebody's going to have to put new air conditioning into the expo center anyway. So it would presumably reduce the sales price of the facility by at least that amount. I'm not aware that there's a requirement that we retain ownership. As long as it's within our ownership, this meets the use requirements of the ARPA Act. If there were, I suppose, some intent to improve that facility, it would have to be specified that we're doing that to maintain the market value of the asset, so that we don't take a huge bite if we were to sell it.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Would you say it's reasonable then that if the board were to give consensus to go forward, that would be an acknowledgement at least of present intent to retain the building?
It certainly lends itself toward that position. I'm not sure that it.
But you're not aware of anything that binds us to keep it? Maybe that's something you could look at between now
certainly.
and bring us a resolution. Okay, thank you.
So Keith, you're just looking for consensus this morning?
I
to
guess
put it on the agenda?
maybe the way to look at it is if a commissioner has a strong objection to me doing that, then I'd like to know that now rather than next week, but.
No, I'm okay with consensus today with the provisions that you and I have just discussed, and I think are captured in the record, just that while I don't have any ambition to sell the facility anytime soon, if we're going to put public money into fixing it up, then I think it's a good discussion to have, and we should know whether or not we would be obligated to return the ARPA funds if, in fact, we did sell it within a certain period of time. That's the liability I was looking at.
Because of the nature of that facility being a public or an economic development mechanism for Franklin County, I think even if it were in private hands, as long as it were being used for its traditional recreational, sporting, economic development kinds of things, I think that would still qualify as a use of those funds, even if it were going to a private owner, because it does provide economic benefit to the community. Having said that, I know some of our tenants, vendors, get a little nervous when we talk about selling it because they want stability and long-term ability to plan for their events. We're working on a couple of fairly significant contracts that will be long-term uses of the arena side of the facility, where air conditioning is desired but not essential. And so I think as far as the technical requirements of ARPA, we're going to be fine, but I will certainly answer those questions and make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, my line of inquiry is just to look at the liability, and if we're going to close the door, we should know it up front, not after the fact. That's all.
Well said.
And currently, we own it.
Yeah.
We're putting the ARPA funds in it if we were to choose to do this. And I think the only thing you need to look at is there any written part of that ARPA funds distribution that would require us to keep it? And I don't think there is any. Okay, so is there a consensus to have this on this agenda next week?
Yes.
I concur with bringing it back with answers to that key question.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody on the phone?
Does not appear to be anybody on the phone.
George Dockstetter. Wild idea while you guys are sitting there talking about that. Since the Kennewick General Hospital's out, why not put our mental health facility in the track building?
Is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone, Keith?
No calls.
So with that, we'll move down to the next item, which is a closed session, RCW 42.30.140, collective bargaining, and this will be with Eric, Mr. Public Relations.
I might just interject, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yep.
Request that the sheriff and Eric Wyatt, HR Director, the board, and the clerk, and the administrator be allowed to participate in that closed
Okay,
session.
thank you.
And I think probably 30 minutes, Eric? Do we need that much time? 10 minutes? All right,
All right.
thank you.
We've come out of closed session. We're going to go back into, we've come out of closed session, and we're going to go back into closed session. Eric, you want 10 more minutes?
Yes, please.
10 more minutes. Same RC. not up and running yet.
Okay.
Okay, we've come out of closed session, and I think we're going to extend for another 5 minutes, same RCW. Okay, we've come out of closed session and we're back in regular session. Keith, I believe we've got, you want to take us into this RCW?
Yes, so we're requesting an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G, to evaluate the qualifications of applicants for public employment. Would request probably an hour for this discussion. Possibility of coming out early, but in fact, let's maybe start with 40 minutes. That way we don't have to wait if we do finish on time, if that's okay.
You want to start with 40 or 30?
Let's start with 40. That puts us right at the top of the hour.
Okay.
I'm quite confident it'll take it that long. And it would ask that the members of the board, the administrator and clerk be allowed to participate.
And who else did you say?
Just Karen and I and the board.
Okay. Okay, we have come out of executive session. We are back in regular session. And before we adjourn the meeting here, I would like to ask a question about one of our discussion topics, and that was a closed record hearing discussion on the roadway, which was mentioned in the findings of facts. It was listed underneath number 5 of the conditions of approval per the engineer's report, dates 4/18/2016, titled Dent Road Future Extension, a full-width roadway to be constructed to current road county standards for Fraser Road. And the discussion on this item was called into question, that it wasn't in there, but it is, and I just want clarity as to why we couldn't talk about the roadway when it was in the.
The objection was not to Fraser Road. In fact, you and I both asked about it, and it was confirmed that it would be built to county standards, and then it would be conveyed to the county, and that it would be an all-weather road. So we had that discussion. I didn't object to that. I did make an objection when we started talking about other projects and how they might be impacted, and that is outside the record. But thanks for asking the question.
Okay. So with that, is there any other business for the good of the county?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would propose that the board officially adopt the names of the members of the Benton Franklin Behavioral Health Advisory Committee. I'd be happy to craft a motion if that's acceptable.
Absolutely.
I would,
So-
I'm sorry.
Ms. Johnson, before you do, we may want to give some consideration to doing these by category as opposed to a group. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but if it's proposed as one large category, I'll be voting no.
That's certainly appropriate. The resolution that we jointly adopted with Benton County requires a law enforcement or corrections officer to be appointed by the Franklin County Board. It is proposed that Sheriff Jim Raymond serve in that position.
And I think these can be done by consensus, so I will just say I concur.
The second position is a fire department.
I'm sorry, I think we need to hear from everybody
I
for
concur as
consensus.
well.
I concur.
Thank you. The next position is a fire department or emergency medical responder. It is recommended that Pasco Fire Chief Bob Gear serve in that capacity.
I concur.
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 It is recommended for the next position, which is a hospital representative, that Joan White Wagner of Lourdes Hospital be appointed to that position.
I do not concur. I contend there is a significant conflict of interest.
I concur.
I concur.
Then the next position is a mental health expert. It is recommended that Robert B.J. Olson be appointed to that position.
I concur.
I concur.
Concur.
Thank you. The next one is a substance use disorder expert. It is recommended that Becky Gross, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her last name, Grohs.
I concur.
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 The next one is a person with lived experience. It is proposed that Angie Manarola be appointed to that position.
I concur.
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 Then there are 2 members of the general public that are appointed by this board. It is recommended that those names be Trevor Hummel and Aaron Petty.
I concur.
Concur.
Concur. All righty. So now do you want to propose the motion?
I think with concurrence, we have what we need, but I would propose
I think we're good.
a motion if you want one.
Well, that would make it official, would it not? I mean, we concurred, but we haven't made a motion to make this our, it's good enough?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. All righty. So with that, is there any other business?
Just to announce that we're probably going to have to cancel the planned joint meeting with the Benton County Board due to scheduling conflicts. It's no reluctance to meet, it's just summer schedules have been problematic. But we will have an update from a member of their Board of Commissioners and Deputy County Administrator to cover the items of
So the
concern.
joint meeting that was going to be held on the 27th of June is now canceled.
Correct. We will also announce that on our website.
Okay, and Commissioner Mullen, you had another,
Well, are we having the night meeting next Tuesday, or
Yes, we'll still
dependent
plan on
upon-
having our weekly meeting, but it'll be next Tuesday evening.
and that's with Benton County attending?
No,
Not sure yet.
yeah, they've been invited, but when we say Benton County, I was thinking the board. No, it'll be a member of the Board of Commissioners and their Deputy County Administrator have been invited. They had initially thought our meeting was going to be a daytime meeting, so they committed to attending that, but we'll see if they're available for the evening meeting.
So the evening meeting will be here in the
Here in
Commissioners'
this room.
at
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's on the 28th. Okay, is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.